All right, Steph, thank you. We have certainly talked a lot about hurricane hunters this week. Yesterday, they flew over the potential tropical cyclone in the Gulf. Our Stephanie Whitfield connects the dots on how these pilots got their start.
Hurricane hunter flights have now become essential for predicting the strength and track of storms. But the story goes, it all started because of a bet. Let's connect the dots. The story starts in Bryan, Texas in 1943, right in the middle of World War II. A hurricane was brewing in the Gulf, and British pilots stationed at Bryan Army Airfield started making fun of their American counterparts for racing to get their planes out of the way of the storm. Over coffee in the mess hall, Colonel Joseph Duckworth got sick of the jokes and bet the Brits he could fly into the hurricane itself and return unharmed. A short time later, Duckworth and a navigator took off, heading south into the storm. Air traffic controllers in Houston told them to keep updating their position so authorities would know where to find their wreckage. But they made it through the rough outer bands, flying straight into the eye of the storm, circling it once before heading back to Bryan Field. Almost as soon as they landed, the field's weather officer asked to be flown into the storm. So on the same day the first pilot survived an intentional flight into a hurricane, a second flight was made to collect scientific data. And the hurricane hunters were born. Connecting the dots, I'm Stephanie Whitfield for H-Town Rush.
All right, thanks to Stephanie. The 1943 hurricane that Duckworth flew into killed 19 people and caused millions of dollars in damage. That information was not reported at the time because Houston's oil and gas industry was so important to the war effort. Time right now is 6:11. No